Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacey St, and thank you for inviting me into your day today. Now, before we dive into this interview, I want to share a quote that I read that resonated with me. And it says, when you can't find someone to follow, you have to find a way to lead by example. I love those words, and they come to us from American author Roxane Gay. Thank you, Roxane. All right. So just a few weeks ago, I had the pleasure of sitting down with short-term rental interior designer Breanna Williams. And we not only talk about designing for your ideal guest avatar and learn about her journey, we also discover her must-have tips for places like your coffee bar, your bedroom, your ensuite. So be sure to grab a pen and paper because you're going to want to take notes. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Breanna. So today we are joined by Breanna Williams, and we are talking all things interior design. And before we dive in, Breanna, I just want to say thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So first, let's just kick off this fun conversation and have you share with our audience a little bit about who you are and where you live.
Yes. So I am Breanna Williams. I own and operate Mumford Designs. So we are an interior design studio that specializes in furnished rentals. So short-term rentals, medium-term rentals. We do consulting, design, and everything in between. We can even help set up the listings and occasionally might co-host, especially for those properties that we really fall in love with. I'm in Southern California, and while I do work virtually as well, I'm primarily all of my clients are in Southern California, and I drive out to them. So I literally go all over Southern California, from Beverly Hills to Big Bear to Palm Springs, you name it. But I live in a small little area. It's funny, my town only has 2 exits. So you don't think of that when you think of Southern California. But it is a tiny little town called Menifee. We're right next to Temecula, which is like Southern California's wine country. So it's beautiful. There are lakes everywhere. And I'm like 15 minutes away from the wineries, which is awesome.
Amazing. I did not realize that Southern California had a wine country to begin with. This is a whole new reason why I need to visit Southern California very soon.
Yes, you do. Just come to our meetups. We have MTR meetups that my friend and I host in Temecula. We switch every other month. This little pocket of Southern California that we're in is called the Inland Empire, and it is rather large. So we tend to alternate on either end of the Inland Empire when it comes to our MTR meetups. But every other month we're in Temecula at one of my favorite wineries that I'm a member at, and they host us there with our big old group, and it's just a ton of fun.
I love it. I love it. So I'm curious, how did you get into interior design? Was it something you always wanted to do as a little girl, or what did that look like for you?
So my dad is a draftsman, so he has that knack for creativity and then also like the skill set behind all of that. And he's really good with his hands. So he's always worked with, building and things of that nature. He built probably half of the house that I grew up in with his bare hands. So he designed it, he built it. And my mom's always had a really good eye for design as well. So, she kind of helped foster that in me when I was little. It was something that I was interested in. So she let me always design my own room, and we were always at model homes and things like that. So I had a lot of exposure to interior design when I was a kid. And as I kind of grew and, got into high school, and they start telling you, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And when I found out that interior design was an actual profession, I'm like, that's it. That's what I want to do. So I think I was 16 when I applied for college. Of course, I still finished high school. I didn't go to college when I was 16. But I applied for college so quickly my junior year of high school, and I was accepted. So I knew exactly where I wanted to go, and it fell into place very, very organically for me.
Wow. That's so fun. And I love that you've always kind of had that calling and you grew up around it, and it's kind of, just continued to be a part of your journey. You mentioned model homes, and I want to share a quick funny. So when my husband and I first got married, by the way, I'm not a designer at any stretch of the imagination, but I do decorate and design my own properties. Very amateurishly, I will say. But
I'm sure they look great. They were successful. So there's something behind that.
there we go. But when we were first married and we had no money, do you know what we would do for entertainment? We would drive around to all the model homes and just go through the model homes with all the builders. That was our entertainment on the weekends. So
that's probably why we did that all weekend long. When I was a kid, it was probably because the parents are like, we need to get out of the house. So let's go do something. And they just loved it. We thought it was the funnest thing as kids. You'd run to the bedrooms and say, oh, this one's my bedroom. Not that we were ever going to move into these houses, but it gave my parents the ideas. Oh, we could do this in our house and that in our house. And then, I remember being like 12 years old, sitting on a large pile of lumber as my dad was, adding on another room to the house. And I would have these notebooks, like spiral notebooks. I had one that was Winnie the Pooh, and it was filled with sketches of the rooms that my dad was building. So it was really fun. And even at that age, I was already exposed to what blueprints looked like and things of that nature. And so it was very interesting. And then looking at, in terms of marketing, of course, I didn't think about this when I was 10 or 12, but looking back on it now, I can see now when you walk through model homes, you might not realize this, but they select those colors for a purpose. The colors that you walk through and that you see in model homes and the just color combinations and things of that nature are intended to evoke certain emotions that kind of pulling your heartstrings. The model home is designed so that you can envision your family living there and things of that nature. That's why they have all these upgrades in them, right? Like they upgrade that to make it an office if that's who they're intending for, the home to be purchased by. So it's very interesting. And now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I see that now.
They got me. So I'm curious, how did you take your passion for interior design and bridge it over, if you will, into the short-term rental and mid-term rental space? What did that look like for you?
So it's funny because I knew what I wanted to do very quickly. That kind of fell into place quite organically. But in all honesty, in terms of how I landed myself into the role that I'm in now, it's been, decades. So that's been a little less maybe organic, and it had to shift into some intentionality at some point, right? I did go to school for interior design. And while I was in school, my husband, who was then my boyfriend, was moving out of state for a job. So we had some decisions to make. We had already been together for a couple of years. So we had some decisions to make. And in knowing that we were planning our future moving forward, I ended up moving out of state. So what I thought I was going to do when I got out of college definitely changed. We actually moved to, I guess it's Southwest Oklahoma. So I had no idea how I was going to translate that, out there. And obviously, and when you're in LA and you go to school in LA, the opportunities are endless and you see it very, very obviously. So moving out there was a little bit different. And I did try whatever I could do just to pay the bills. So like I waited tables, I did bartending, things like that. But at the end of the day, I wanted to come back to interior design. So we did start a family and I took a year or two, not off per se, but this is when I was doing these odd jobs. I think I worked at a golf course at one point, driving that like cart. That was awesome when I had a little baby at home because I could get out in nature, and that actually might be one of my favorite jobs that I ever had. But
what did you do when you drove the cart? Like, did you just
literally just drive in circles and, hey, do you need a hot dog? Do you want a Bloody Mary? I mean, I learned how to make really good Bloody Marys on that golf cart. But so much of it was just parked under a tree reading a book. And I didn't have, because you're driving out there by yourself. So you don't really have a boss breathing down your neck. It was great. It was so nice. But of course, at the end of the day, I still wanted to move towards a career. So I actually at that time started working in retail, furniture retail showroom. And originally just started as a sales associate, was quickly promoted to a design manager. And so I oversaw the design department for this retail furniture showroom for almost 10 years. And I absolutely loved it, but I miss all the bedtimes because I didn't get home until 9 o'clock at night. Sometimes I was working 12 hours a day. It just depended, on that's retail for you, right? So definitely wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life, but I did enjoy it. I learned a lot about how important it is to listen to what the people that are using the space need for that space and how every family is different. We designed so many different homes, so many different styles, so many different, age, you name it. We had younger families, we had older couples, pretty much everything you can think of. People who prioritize the design, people who prioritize the comfort. And that really gave me a lot of exposure into different types of what I now call guest avatars. And then, of course, COVID hit in 2020 and that tanked retail for sure.
Yeah.
So definitely affected things. And right around that time, my third kiddo was born and she was born on Labor Day weekend, which is also my birthday is also on Labor Day weekend.
Whoa. What's your birthday?
September 4th. What's yours?
The 1st.
Oh, we're so close.
I know.
That's funny. So my daughter's is the 7th. And so I always sacrificed my birthday to retail. I mean, I was in retail since I was 15. So as soon as I was 15 and have to get my work permit, I was getting a job, right? So I've been in retail for so long. I'm like, it's fine. I'll sacrifice my birthday. No big deal. But then when she was born, I'm like, I'm not missing her first birthday. It's not happening. I've missed so many other things. At this point, that was my third kid. So that kind of pushed me into leaving that role and opening my own design firm. And what do you do when you open your design firm and you have no clients?
Yes. What did you do?
I did not know how to market for the life of me. I mean, in a showroom like that people just come to you, like the clients coming in, the corporation is doing the marketing. And at that time, my services were quote unquote free as they market it, in these stores. Right. So, I didn't really know how to market myself. So I hired a coach, who helped with branding and marketing. And, he really kind of gave me insight into, you got to niche down. Who do you want to work with? And at that same time, my husband and I were actually looking for our own short-term rental. Again, it was COVID. So Airbnb was booming. And, that's where so many people were shifting their attention. So that was something that we were looking at doing in our local mountain market. And of course, I set my eyes on this massive property that had 13 cabins and was on 4.5 acres. And I did not know how I was going to pay for that. So somebody suggested that I plug into my local real estate investment club. So I did out in Riverside, California. And I started meeting so many people there who really opened my eyes into the fact that, there's a need for design in that field, in this space with investors. And making so many friends in this space really kind of helped me realize that this is where I wanted to be. I really enjoy helping somebody else grow a business, but I'm still in my zone of genius, still doing what I knew that I wanted to do since, I was 12. Yeah. So, I have absolutely loved it. And then since then, of course, I do still do short-term rentals, but I just love a timeless design that takes you, from now until maybe 10 years. I love the aspect of sustainability in design. And so sometimes that means keeping things for a really long time or finding a way to repurpose something that's older, and maybe has a little bit more of a vintage element to it. So in that, I think that speaks a little bit more so towards maybe medium-term rentals because you can stick with a quieter palette. That quieter palette is going to last you a lot longer in terms of your design elements. So that's just kind of where I fall into, that's my comfort zone, right? In terms of creating and designing. And so while I still love to do short-term rentals every now and then, because it's fun to create all these little amenities and things like that, midterm rentals have my heart. And just who my clients, the investors, are able to serve with their properties in that way. We really start digging into who's the guest that's staying in the property. That's been really fun for me to create for people that are in those circumstances.
Yeah. You mentioned timeless versus trend. And I will tell you personally, I'm a timeless person. I
We
mean,
all are.
I don't know. I'm curious from your perspective, why you feel like you enjoy timeless better. For me, I think it's in all sense of the matter, it is functionality. For me, it's like, okay, I don't have to replace that item next year or in 2 years. And I'm talking about from my own wardrobe to my own house to the properties that I own and manage. I really do enjoy that timeless approach so that it doesn't look dated quickly. But talk to me about timeless for you. Why do you think it's resonated on your end?
For me, I have 4 kids now, and there is so much stuff that comes with 4 kids, right? And so at some point, it was too much, and I just wanted to pare things down. And I realized the more we grow, the more stuff we accumulate, and then it all ends up just going into the trash or essentially a waste. And I used to love to change out my decor for the most part, every season. Because of what I do, I'm always exposed to all these new things. And so it's like, oh, now I want to go with this color scheme. Now I want to go with that color scheme. And I realized how much waste there was in that. And I guess that just sort of triggered me into creating a space for our family that didn't provide so much waste. And how can we reuse something in a new way? Maybe it goes from this room to that room. It was used to store linens. This cabinet was used to store linens, but now we're going to use it to store board games in the playroom or whatever the case may be. And so in gathering more and more inspiration for things of that nature, of course, it's exposed me to a lot of other spaces and other designers who also practice a lot of sustainability in their designs. And that has helped me grow that theology of just kind of sustainability. And the only way that you can really practice sustainability when you're furnishing properties and really designing spaces is by creating something that is timeless. It doesn't mean that we can't change our pillows, every year or two. And in fact, in a short-term rental, you're probably going to have to,
Yeah.
but we think about things a little bit differently. Like instead of buying cheap pillows and then throwing them away in 6 months because they get all flat and, they're gross and they're stained, what can you do? You can't put them in the washer because the mold can grow inside, etc. So instead of doing that, we take pillow inserts that are high quality and then we wrap them in pillow protectors. And then we get pillow covers that can be taken off and we can just change the pillow cover. Now we don't have quite so much waste. I think at one point, no lie, we had a spare bedroom that was like one wall was all pillows. I probably had like 20 pillows because I just buying like cheap Target pillows. And, it's like, what do you do with them? And so eventually my husband's like, why are we keeping them all? I'm like, I don't know, because I spent money and I don't want to get rid of it.
There you go.
So, we had to figure something else out. So I think that's really where that comes from. But then also just my personal taste, not that I always design for my personal taste. I have clients who want, modern. I have clients who want edgy. I have clients who want, maybe more color, whereas my home might be more neutral. But my personal taste has more of a neutral flair to it. It's a little bit of a quieter, more calm and peaceful, color scheme. And I like to play with textures to create the visual interest as opposed to bright pops of color. And then that lets me bring in, different shades for different seasons and things like that. And I keep the spring pillow cover and I just swap it in the fall for something, a little darker and moodier, but it still gives me it still feels that need to create something new every now and again.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you mentioned too, designing for guest avatar. I know for me, I love to identify guest avatar from the get-go, even when I'm setting out to purchase a property or when I'm looking at a property, I try to determine the target guest avatar immediately because it helps, in my opinion, every decision thereafter, right? When you have that target guest in mind. From your perspective, what do you feel like are important elements to include when you're defining that guest avatar? And then how do you design for them as a professional?
Yes. So before I do any design project, my clients go through what's called a property audit. And in that property audit, we are identifying who their primary, secondary, and tertiary guest avatars are. Because you don't always just have one, right? You might set up your property for bachelorettes, but you might also be getting some families, or you could have groups of friends who are not going for a bachelorette party and just want to get together. So you have different avatars that you are going to be working with at some point or another, but we want to anticipate who the top three are essentially when we're putting our thoughts into how much money should we put into the design, what kinds of amenities do they want to see in the property, et cetera. And I'm really a big proponent of allowing the market to dictate who your guest avatar is, or specifically that property to dictate who your avatar is. Depending on if you're located near certain attractions, we can say, that might tell you, who you're going to be servicing. So if you're in Florida and you're, right next to Disneyland or Disney World and, all the other things that are there, of course, that's a big spot for family vacations. So you might say, yes, I want to service these families, and you're going to set up your property accordingly. You need to have certain things like high chairs and, pack and plays and maybe a couple of toys for kids or things that are going to keep them entertained. Maybe a really fun playroom, things of that nature. Whereas if we're in an area that, let's just say, is right next to a PGA golf course, and we know we're going to be bringing in potentially the golfers themselves, people from their crew, their families, their friends, or people who are coming to attend these events, then obviously your amenities are going to look a little bit different. So we take whatever's around us, we determine who's traveling to the area and what's the purpose for their travel. Sometimes if you're not, let's just say you're looking at more of a medium term, you happen to be looking at a property and you cannot short-term rental in that property because there are restrictions against it. So you're going to be a medium-term rental. Again, then we're looking at, who's coming to this property? Are there hospitals in the area where we know there's a lot of traveling medical professionals? Or are you next to a cancer institute where they have, long-term treatment? So you have patients that are moving to these areas or that are coming and staying maybe Monday through Friday. And so sometimes they're looking to rent homes and things of that nature as well. So you can have patients or, whatever the case may be. There's so many different avatar types out there. We just look at the market, the neighborhood. If I'm in person, I actually drive around the neighborhood, and it should be part of your underwriting. You should be looking at who it is that you're servicing, because if you do determine that you want to attract, traveling nurses, for instance, their budgets are sometimes a little bit lower than that of maybe a traveling surgeon or anesthesiologist or whatever the case may be, or an extended vacationer who can afford to fly into the US and spend 2 months here. You have to know what they can afford, and that'll also kind of tell you what their standard of living is that they're expecting. And of course, anytime somebody's renting something, you should probably provide a step above their expected standard of living, just to provide exceptional, customer service and guest experience.
I love that you say that, because for me, that is one of the things that we look at. My husband and I look at when we're going on vacation. When we're booking a property, we're thinking, okay, we want to find a property to stay in that is nicer than our own home, right? That's our bar.
Yes.
So I love that you actually think about that from a design perspective and incorporate that in your plan.
And knowing who you're renting to will help you determine, especially when you dig into you need to know their demographics. Is it man? Is it woman? What's their age bracket? Maybe what do they do for a living, or how much money do they make? Those things are important, but you also want to know their psychographics, like what motivates them to book, and what are the pain points that they're going to experience during a stay? What are the amenities that you can provide that are going to alleviate those pain points? For instance, if you're housing traveling athletes, whether that be professional, collegiate, or otherwise, you need to know, are they looking for something where they can actually work out at the house? Or are they going and working out at some facility, but they need someplace that they can rest and relax? So maybe an ice bath or a sauna, things of that nature can really take their experience over the top.
Yeah.
And so, of course, that word of mouth is going to spread, and that'll bring additional business and potentially even repeat business. So knowing who it is, knowing what they're coming for, and knowing how to make their experience top notch awesome. Go. Marketing plan for your property, and you have all of that before you've even spent a dime on your furnishings and your amenities.
I'm curious, what challenges have you experienced with an owner who maybe says, well, I have 3 different guest avatars or 3 different people I want to, or 3 different, categories of people that I want to host. How do you stage and furnish and design that from your end so that it meets the needs of each guest avatar, or do you prioritize?
There is priority involved in there, but we just find a commonality. So that's why I say with my clients, we do look at, like top 1, 2, 3 guest avatars. And we know most of the time we're trying to attract families. Like, I'm just going to use an example of a property that I did that was in Newport Beach, California. Did it in January of this year. They're right across the street from a really highly sought after elementary school. So we knew that it was going to be families who have younger elementary aged children. So we wanted to incorporate amenities that mattered to them, like spaces that they could get together as a family, do board games, things of that nature. We created those moments in photography as well for marketing, made a little kids corner for them to do their homework, set aside toys, things of that nature. And in that, we're, okay, yes, we want to attract these people. What types of avatars would that be? More niche down a little bit further. Yes, it's a family, but let's talk about what they're coming for. What's the purpose of their stay? That could be relocating families. This is a medium-term rental. It could be, relocating families that are local in the neighborhood who maybe had a fire or a flood, or are doing home renovations and need someplace to stay for the interim. Or it could be families who are moving into the area. It happened to be that this owner knew of a few corporate offices that were in the area, who do frequently bring in new employees from out of the country, and they pay for them to come and stay. So he already had that connection. That was a possibility that he knew he might be able to fill with. And then, of course, potentially like corporate housing and stuff. Now, corporate housing does not necessarily come with children. That could just be one single person. But because the level of design that we were already anticipating putting into the property suited itself for a company who might just, have just a single person coming in, we had to keep that in mind. So we designed their primary bedroom. We put a little bit more focus on the primary bedroom in both the design and then also just the quality of furniture that we were putting in there. We made the kids' bedroom just a really kind of secondary priority. But then we did prioritize that kids' space downstairs because we knew that was going to attract for marketing. So it's just taking the commonalities between them. We knew there was a certain standard of living that we needed to hit regardless of who was coming to stay, just because of the area and the median income for that area in general. And then from there, we prioritized out by, we know in all 3 of these types of avatars, they're going to use the primary bedroom.
Right.
The downstairs space, it might not get used so much. So let's make it a flex space. It can be a home office. We'll put a Murphy bed or a wall bed in there so that it can be that extra guest bedroom. But we're also putting an electric workout mirror, like the tonal mirrors. And we also put one of those in there so that you could still move that desk out of the way and use it as a home office. So, and then once you know that, you can kind of designate the budget in different areas or kind of delegate the budget to different rooms a little differently.
I love that you mentioned that in all of the different scenarios, the primary bedroom was an area of focus, because no matter who or how many people stay, somebody's sleeping in that primary bedroom, right? I love that. I'm curious. I noticed from your website that, you mentioned that you love designing en-suites that make getting ready a breeze. I'm curious if you don't mind sharing, like, what are some of your favorite must-have items for an ensuite?
So I always look at, when it's an ensuite, we're really looking at the bathroom. Obviously, that's where most of us end up getting ready. So it's just making that space super convenient. So when I am setting up a property, I set it all up. I turn over turnkey property to my clients so that they're ready to rent, as soon as I give them their keys back, essentially. Or in this case, we don't really usually have keys, but as soon as I tell them, hey, you could delete my code from your lock, So I like to include little organizers that have, Q-tips and cotton swabs and things of that nature. We definitely include the black makeup towels. Those are a must. They have to be in every single property. And then just making sure that there's enough towels for everybody. And love to have a robe, a really nice comfy robe so that people can use that when they're getting ready as well. And then in the event that your bathroom is not big enough for two people to comfortably get ready, what I do is I'll make sure that I've set aside a space inside the bedroom that can also serve as a vanity. So we make sure that there's a mirror. We make sure that there's some place for them to sit, a stool or something of that nature. And that could also serve as, a workspace. It could be a desk with a nice chair, but we're going to include maybe a makeup mirror with lighting on it and things of that nature as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I have a quick logistical question about the robes because, you think about towels and linens, how, during a turnover, obviously those need to be laundered. Are you buying multiple sets of robes like you are multiple sets of linens to be able to accommodate a fast turnover? Because I'm assuming that robe needs washed, right?
It depends on how many we're putting into this space. So in many cases, we'll only put the robes in the primary bedroom. But if this is a home where we know that a lot of adults are going to be coming and staying, for instance, if it is a short-term rental and we can sleep 10 guests and we know that we're going to have at least 2 or 3 sets of adults in the space, we do want to provide the robes for all of the adults. And in that case, I would ask either the owner or the property manager, whoever it is that that will be taking over the management of the space. I do often work with property managers as well who will bring me in for the design services for their clients. So whoever it is that's going to be managing, I just ask them, what does your laundry situation look like? Is it going to be off-site? Is it being done here in-house? For those larger houses, 9 times out of 10, it's taken off-site. So we do need an extra robe. But if it is on-site and it's a small 2 or 3 bedroom house, we can stick with 1 robe per adult that we're anticipating. So whatever that may be. And like I said, in some cases, if it's families that we're looking to attract, it's just putting the robes just in the primary bedroom. And if that's the case, 2 robes is easy to wash. 8 robes, not as easy to wash.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry. You also want to think about how that's going to dry. Just like you're thinking about how your bedding is going to dry, robes, you have to be conscientious of what material you're getting. So I prefer the cotton waffle weave robes. Those tend to dry a little bit faster than some of the thicker, more plush terry cloth robes.
Yeah. Yeah. Good call out there for sure. Okay. So we talked about ensuite must-haves. You talked about a bedroom must-have. If you've got a small ensuite, I love the concept of putting a vanity in there. Curious for bedding. What are some of your bedding must-have items?
I love California design den sheets. So that is usually what I source 9 times out of 10, unless of course an owner asks for something different. But that's what I use in my house. My kids have California design den on their beds. I have it on my bed. They're comfortable, they're breathable, and they don't break the bank. So I've played with anything from their 400 to their 600 thread counts. And they're all really great. The higher this thread count goes, the more heat retention you're going to get. So some people think, 800 thread count might be more luxurious, but you'll want to try it first because sometimes that can be a little bit warmer. But nonetheless, they have so many options to pick from. And sometimes just depending on when you're purchasing, the pricing is a little bit better and you can kind of, go up a notch or,
Right.
So, but I absolutely love their stuff.
Okay. I have just had a breakthrough moment. Okay. So I'm not going to share how old I am, but I will share at my age. Every once in a blue moon, I will get hot flashes at night. Okay. And I've never thought about the thread count of my sheets because I will go through phases where I'll have a period of time where I wake up with hot flashes every night. And then I go through a period of time where I don't. I've never thought about the sheets.
Yes, definitely. And it can change too. I mean, seasonality definitely factors into things. You need cooler sheets in the summer. But 100%, we don't really think about it, but it makes sense because the weave is tighter on a higher thread count. There's a little bit less breathability. Mm-hmm. So unless they change the composition of the fibers, you're either going to get less breathability or, and it'll be a little bit warmer. Or, of course, if they change the composition of the fibers for their higher thread count, then that would definitely change things. But The sweet spot that I found has been if it's a lower end, maybe like an 80th percentile property, we could stick with the 400 thread count. If we're really trying to push into that 90th percentile, you're trying to get over $1,000 a night, we probably want to be closer to the 600 thread count on those sheets. That's specifically for California Design Den. Those are the ones that I've tried out the most and I use in my own house. So
love it. Love it. Okay. Let's talk about coffee bar must-haves. What are your favorite items for a coffee bar?
More and more, I keep getting guests that ask for Nespresso machines. And I have had so many people say, okay, the coffee bar, what do we want to offer? Do we want to do drip? Do we want to do espresso? Do we want to do like this really crazy cool barista, the Breville barista machines? I have a Breville barista and I never use it because it's so complicated. You have to dial it every time you change the beans. Every time you get a new bag of beans, you have to redial the machine. You have to make sure that the water temperature is set appropriately. Otherwise, you get just bad tasting coffee, right? So, and if they're not baristas, they're not going to know how to use it. But if you can offer an espresso machine, it does look a little bit more high end. So the Nespresso machines are my favorite. And then just for a standard drip coffee machine that still packs a little bit of a punch and can create a nice impression, I like the Ninja coffee bars. Have you seen these? I love them because you can do like concentrated coffee. You could do cold brew. You could brew it over ice. You could change the size. You could do a whole pot. You could do just a cup. So it kind of negates the need for having a Keurig and then like a Mr. Coffee, like actual pot, and then an espresso. It negates the need for all of that. A lot of times for properties that are starting off with a lower budget or maybe less counter space, I will just do the Ninja coffee bar. I really like the one that also brews tea. So there's like a separate setting for tea. And then there's a little frother that comes out the side. So if you do want to froth your milk or your creamer, what have you can. It just eliminates the need for having all of the extra components like an actual milk frother, etc. But if you have a little bit of extra space and you want to put together a really impressive coffee bar, have that Ninja coffee bar, and then also do the Nespresso with a little milk frother. And that's pretty much all you need. That covers all bases, I think.
There you go. I love that. In fact, I love Ninja products. I don't know if you've ever tried the Ninja air fryer, but it is my absolute favorite thing in my kitchen.
Yes. Yeah. Do you have the foodie or just the standard air fryer?
I don't even know. Or
Pretty
bought
cool.
it at Costco, and it's got two different sides, or I can do it a mega zone and like do everything at one temperature, or I can, do two different, a meat and a vegetable or something like that. But now I have to look when I get home. I got to look to see what I have.
And there's now need different things out there too. I did design a property, and their kitchen it was a Ninja kitchen suite. So all of the products that we put in essentially were Ninja. They even have the little chopper where you can, chop up your onions into make salsa. They had the chopper, the knives, the pots and pans were Ninja. The coffee bar was Ninja. It was a pressure cooker crock pot combo. That was Ninja. I don't think Ninja makes a toaster. I'd have to double check. I actually don't know that, but I don't think we did Ninja for their toaster. But nonetheless, any product that we could get that was Ninja, we did that just so that they could market it as having this Ninja, kitchen suite.
So you mean they could be a marketing ninja, right? Have you tried? Okay, I'm going to go a step further. Have you tried the Ninja grill, like the outdoor?
Tell me. The outdoor one. No.
Yeah. So it's an electric grill, and it's not a charcoal or a propane, but it is so phenomenal because it has so many settings. You can do grilling. You can do air frying. You can do smoking meats. You can smoke meat in half the time.
Really?
It is phenomenal. Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to have to check that out. My husband wanted a smoker for Mother's Day, and I was like, you got to pick out your own smoker. But now maybe I'll just get him the Ninja. Anytime that you can, when we're talking about specifically putting into your properties, anytime you can combine functionality of these larger appliances, number one, even if that appliance is a little bit more expensive, it will save you money in the long run. Because you don't have so many independent things that can, something can go wrong, et cetera. And then it saves you so much counter space. The biggest feat in that is going to be making sure that the guests know how to use it. So I like to create a QR code, print it out on a sticker, and just put it right on the appliance, like on the side or something in an inconspicuous area. And it could take them to a video like on YouTube that just shows them how to operate the unit. Or sometimes, like if it's the grill and it can do all these different things, you could even maybe have that QR code take them to a playlist that also shows them recipes and things like that. So, but now I definitely have to try the Ninja grill.
You gotta let me know. Gotta let me know what you think. Okay. So much fun stuff. I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. So I am going to ask you to answer with the very first thing that comes to mind in somewhat easy questions. First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
Anywhere with a beach.
Oh yeah, girl. Do you have a favorite beach?
I'm sure there are tons of beaches that we have not been to, but we went to Cancun last year and that was fun. Although I will say I probably want to try Tulum next. But just that area with the weather that we had, it was perfect.
So gorgeous. I love Cancun. It is one of my favorite places to visit. The color of the water. I always am amazed by the color of the water when I go to the Caribbean. And I say it here. It's so gorgeous. So gorgeous. Where did you stay in Cancun?
It was a timeshare that my mother-in-law and father-in-law have.
It's a very memorable place.
Royal Lands, maybe? I know.
I've been there. Yeah, multiple times.
Okay. It's not like the newest, hippest place or anything like that, but they had everything that we needed. Their service was impeccable. And it was just my husband and I for our 10th wedding anniversary. So it was fun to go play pool. And then we were on the beach and, we had all the food and drinks that we wanted. So it was great.
At Hacienda Sisal right there. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that Hacienda Sisal was amazing. Their food was incredible every night. I mean, if I could have eaten there every night, I would have.
I know. Sometimes it's funny when we go to Cancun and we do have friends who have a timeshare there. So a lot of times we'll stay there for a week and then stay at another property for a week. So it's like we have a 2-week vacation in the same locale. But we will totally plan our days around, okay, now when do we get to eat at Hacienda Sisal again?
It is really good that we ate there probably 3 or 4 times in our 10 days there.
I know.
And I mean, they even their desserts were to die for. And I mean, I think by the end of it, we knew that the waiters by name, hey. They're like, if you love Cancun, what's been one of your favorite things to do when you're in Cancun?
Well, I tell you what, I love Cozumel. So last time we took a day trip to Cozumel and that was so super fun. We had the most amazing snorkeling trip. I love to go snorkeling. So we've done several boat trips to snorkeling sites. You can drive these little yellow boats and I don't know what they're called, but little personalized yellow speedboats and you go through the mangroves and then you go out and go to the jungle. Yes.
That was my favorite thing too. It was awesome.
It's so fun. So fun. One thing I would not recommend is going deep sea fishing in Cancun because I did that. My husband and I did it with our friends and I swear that we were almost to Cuba and that somebody was going to kidnap us. We were really far off the coast, but not that there's anything wrong with Cuba, but I didn't necessarily feel safe. We were really proud. But anywho, I love Cancun. Love Cancun. Wait, what's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Probably Greece or Italy, one of the two, but they're both kind of up there. Maybe I would probably choose Greece over Italy.
Okay. Interesting. I've heard Greece a lot lately when I asked that question.
Really? Cool. There was a time where I would have said Paris because of the architecture, but I don't want to go to Paris until they rebuild the Notre Dame. That would have been one of the biggest things I would have wanted to go see. And it's just so sad that it burned. So I don't want to go there until it's rebuilt. Right. It's like probably in my lifetime will be rebuilt.
That burned. I was going to say, I will never forget that. Like that.
Yeah, it was tragic. It really was tragic. I can imagine for the city itself, it was also very tragic. But
I was there a week later. Right after
I had a friend that was there the week before. And so she was like, thank God I got to see it. I mean, even when they rebuild, it's not going to be quite the same, but at least, we have it documented and stuff. But there is a lot of history in architecture there. Although I think if I was going with my husband, he would hate it because I would want to really walk through and read every placard, and I would totally nerd out on the architecture of the properties, the buildings. And he would be like, Bree, this is really boring. We got to get on. We got to move on.
No. Where do you run a plaque down the street? Let's go. No.
But Greece would be great for us because it's going to have his beaches, the food, impeccable food, things like that. But it's also very inspiring. There's a lot of nature, but then there's a little bit of everything, I think. That might be why maybe so many people are leaning towards that right now.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out in the world of interior design or designing for short or midterm rentals?
Definitely the marketing. Marketing and branding has taken my business into a completely different direction than I could have ever imagined that it would have. I mean, it's really what created me to kind of niche down into the space that I'm in now. And that's what I'm helping other people do is we're niching down. We're figuring out how to market to the people that they need to market to. And at the end of the day, that is what is going to make your business successful. I did not have that. And the first year of my business was just a little bit of like this and that and helping this friend's aunt and that neighbor. And, and it just wasn't fun in its, it wasn't my zone of genius. I wasn't doing the best work that I could do. And now that I know how to market, properly, and you do it kind of backwards, right? Like, who you are marketing to and then who you can service. And then you kind of just attract those people naturally. Now I can help other people do that too. So that's been the biggest, probably the biggest and most important thing that I've learned.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Curious. Next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, that one is hard. You're never going to be fully ready.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know. And I almost just want to leave it there, but I think I actually got that advice when we were pregnant with our first kiddo. I'm like, oh my God, we're not ready for this. What are we going to do? And I had somebody tell me, you're never going to be ready, whether you plan it or you don't plan it, or it's a surprise or what have you. You're never going to be fully ready. And then, it's been reiterated throughout lifetime, right? It's so many things. You're never ready to own a house. You're never ready to start a business. You're never ready to scale your business. You just have to tug up those bootstraps and just make it work.
Love that. And last question, what is one person and or thing that you're grateful for today?
I'm going to say my mom, because she's outside keeping all 4 kids quiet.
Great mom.
Right? But she's my biggest cheerleader. She definitely is. She obviously inspired me to do what I do now anyway, but she helps with everything that I need. And, and here I am in my 30s and she's still, is helping me with all the things that I need. And I think, she's taught me how to be a good mom too. So
amazing. Breanna, if someone wants to learn more about you or the services that you provide, what is the best place for them to find you online?
Oh, yes, of course. You can go to my website, mumforddesigns.com, or you can find me on Instagram at Mumford_designs. And the same on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/Mumford_design.
I love it. Breanna, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.
Now, before you go, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the amazing women inside the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group. Just a day ago, Sarah Kern posted, "One of our homes gets a musty smell when it's humid out. We plan on installing a dehumidifier soon to help with the situation. No odors any other time of the year. I've been avoiding home fragrances since some guests seem to be sensitive to scents. Anyone else dealt with this situation? Any suggestions? And so far, 14 women have jumped in and shared their feedback. Everything from Christy Haley. She says, if you have a musty smell, you have water intrusion. It's rarely humidity causing the odor, unless you have a very damp crawl space, and even that must be identified and dealt with. Please address the source of the moisture. Erica Lynn says there can be many hidden areas of moisture. A dehumidifier might help, plus an air purifier, but try to find the root of the problem. We have an old cottage that was renovated, and the old wood holds a lot of moisture and smells. Such great insight. Thank you, Erica and Christy, for sharing your feedback. And thank you, Sarah, for posting the question. And with that, that wraps up today's episode. I hope you have a phenomenal week ahead, and I will see you next time.